Hearing none, I'll call it. All in favor? Motion is carried. Minutes and action report from the meeting of October 4th is next. A motion to accept the minutes as presented. Moved by Councillor Stoyles, seconded by Councillor Tessier. Any errors or omissions to the minutes, again, of the meeting of October 4th? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried. Business arising from the minutes of, again, October 4th. Councillor Tessier?
Yes, Your Worship. A couple of items. 699, the Oktoberfest Craft Fair. I know that several members of council had the opportunity to take a swing by, as did I on, I believe it was it Saturday?
Yeah.
It was Saturday or Sunday? Monday. You're absolutely right. It was Thanksgiving Monday. You're absolutely right. Long
You're
weekends.
saying 699?
669, sorry. 669. It's been a long day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, it was. I think, for all intents and purposes, I think it was a tremendous success. There was a lot of bodies there when we popped by, and my understanding from the city staff is that it was consistent for the entire duration of the day. So I want to commend everybody who had a hand in that, and of course our representatives with community services as well, because that was, again, a successful day. And while I'm on my feet, I could continue.
You're on your
All
feet.
right.
Please do.
And of course, we had the official opening of the Glacier Ice Pad this weekend, and we were thrilled to have lots of people there representing different levels of government who showed support for us with that particular event. And we were thrilled by that. Of course, MHA Kent was there, and all members of council, members of senior staff. And I know that the Community Services Department wanted to pass along their thanks for everybody's involvement, but I think it's entirely fitting that we pass along our thanks to the Community Services Department for their efforts and their contribution in making that day a tremendous success. They could do nothing about the cold on the ice surface.
Neither did they want to.
Neither did they want to, but I think it was a wonderful event, and I think it's something we're all very proud of, and again, our appreciation to both levels of government for their assistance in that particular endeavor as well.
Hear, hear. Thank you for that.
Your Worship, I have to say something.
Councillor Walsh?
That's how you don't get cut off doing other business. You do it at the beginning of the meeting. So you've got to keep an eye on this guy here. That's what you need to do.
He's not mentioning any names.
No names.
See, what he doesn't realize is that I've got a couple of hockey pucks down here.
You do it at the beginning.
You totally usurped Dave Aker on that. Before we move on, I want to recognize in our gallery here and welcome MHA Steve Kent. Good afternoon, sir. It's interesting seeing you down there looking up here. Right? I was much more used to you up here and me down there looking up at you. Again, congratulations both on your recent victory, but also on the new addition to the family. We think that you had a pretty exciting one day there for sure. And it's going to be interesting, obviously, in the next few weeks in politics in this province as well. We're delighted you could join us today. We have some developments that are going to happen a little later, I think, in the meeting with our council colleague here. And we're going to get to that when the time comes. So welcome. Any other business arising from the minutes of October 4th? Going once. Twice. Hearing none, we are going to move along. Proclamations and presentations, we have none today. Correspondence vacant as well. We're going to move to our first committee report, which is Community Services Committee. Councillor Tessier, if you would.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The first item on our agenda has to do with the Mount Pearl Sports Hall of Fame. It's a call for nominations with a deadline of October the 31st. The Hall of Fame was founded in 1995, and of course it's a very important part of our sporting community here in Mount Pearl. It's administered by the Mount Pearl Sport Alliance, and the Hall of Fame recognizes and honors and permanently records accomplishments and contributions to the development of sport in our community. And of course there's three categories that are recognized: those who have achieved excellence as athletes during their competitive days. I don't know if any of us are going to ever make that grade. I think I'd make the cut. You never know. Those who have achieved. Oh yes, I can make the cut. I can make the cut.
I think I'll make the cut.
I can make the cut. That wasn't a motion. That's just going to be a given at some point. That's going to be a given at some point. Let's call a spade a spade.
Is it a fantasy or is it a goal?
Those who have achieved excellence both as athletes and builders, of course, which is a very important category in the sport in Mount Pearl, and those who are recognized as builders of local sport clubs and associations. none of it could be possible without the builders. So currently there's 61 members and 5 teams in the Sports Hall of Fame, and we're looking forward to inducting more new members this year. So again, the deadline for nominations is Monday, October the 31st, and people can contact the Mount Pearl Sport Alliance or, of course, City Hall if they want more information on how to nominate a worthy candidate for this. So that's just for information purposes only.
Thank you.
Just a comment, Your Worship.
Councillor Walsh, yes.
Last year, for the first time, Your Worship, I think all members of council remember that we, as part of that night, because that for the last few years has been a combined event with the Athlete of the Year and the Hall of Fame. They used to be 2 separate events. We had a reception here, and I assume that the committee is going to continue with that. It was a 1 year in a row success. But I really think it was well received by the members.
I thought
of the
it
Hall
was
of
as
Fame.
well. I can't imagine us not doing it unless they themselves don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, I think they'd love to see it done. I've talked to a number of them, and I know it may be too far out in your agenda to have decided on that, but I just want to put that out there that I think last year we got really good value for that reception. They really appreciate it, and particularly in light of the fact that they've been waiting for some time for a permanent home for the Hall of Fame, and there are all kinds of things in the mix in terms of where that was
Here we go
proposed
again.
and that. So even more so important that maybe we try to get some of the mementos up for a short period of time as we did last year, have the reception, and I think that will hold everybody in good stead, and it will certainly extend a bit of an olive branch that I think is worthy of being extended to a group of people who have contributed immensely to our community development. So just want to make that point. And do you know when the date of that is? It's normally after Christmas, isn't it?
There's no date confirmed at this point.
Nothing confirmed.
No, only the deadline for nominations.
Yeah, sometime.
Yeah, it's usually late January.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Tessier?
That's a really good point. Really good point, Councillor Walsh, and thank you for bringing that to Council's attention, because that really was well received and well attended.
Should do it again.
Yes,
definitely.
absolutely. The second item is our Director of Community Services is requesting to attend the Parks and Recreation Ontario 2011 Pro Aquatics Conference in Muskoka, Ontario. That's being held from November 2nd to the 4th, and of course the cost is included in the department's professional budget, and I think that's quite timely right now as well on the landscape here in Mount Pearl, so we are requesting permission for his attendance, and I so move.
It is moved, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried. And that concludes it. We'll move to corporate services. Deputy Mayor?
Just wanted to second, but not Councillor Tessier's hope to make the Hall of Fame. All right.
She'll make it one day.
It was a minister of government, so why couldn't you do it as a councillor?
Oh, Minister Denai made it then, did he? Okay.
I'm in the Mount Pearl Men's Softball Hall of Fame.
Is that valid as well, or is that fabricated?
No.
Yes.
He
Councillor
was-
Walsh, are you also you're in the Hall of Fame as well, are you not? No, under basketball. That's provincial though, is it not?
Councillor Lane's in the Hall of Fame as an appreciation from all of his competitors, the teams that they've had to play against.
Under what category, I wonder, is Councillor Lane in the Hall of Fame? Maybe we'll talk about that after. 2 items here, Your Worship.
Okay.
Quick items. The first one are tax deferrals for low-income earners.
Yep.
And we're recommending approval for the 4 that are listed there. The roll numbers are outlined there. And I move that we accept these as presented.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried.
And the second item, Your Worship, are some invoices for council approval. I would recommend that the following 13 invoices be approved for payment. And as you can see, they total $700,418.41. And I move that they be accepted as presented.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Aker. Any comment or question on any of the invoices listed 1 to 13? Hearing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion is carried.
And that is it, Your Worship. Thank you.
We are up to economic development, communication, tourism. Councillor Stoyles.
We just have one item, Your Worship, and that is the Chamber of Commerce Best in Business is tomorrow night at the Reed Community Centre starting at 7 o'clock, and right now they have approximately 150 tickets sold, and of course they have 6 outstanding
They have over
categories.
150?
Over 150 tickets sold.
That's good
as of
turnout.
today. 180?
180, that's good.
That's excellent. Last I heard earlier this morning was at 150, and It's great. They have 6 different categories, and of course, they have a guest speaker in the name of Mr. Tim Powers. He's
You wouldn't know him. He's a big-time conservative.
no, I
But he
don't
was
know.
on TV last week.
He was.
Yeah, I did see him on TV, and I was wondering who he had been.
He's a
Actually,
very
'cause I didn't
successful
know.
Newfoundlander, actually.
Anyway, I'm sure he's going to do a good job speaking. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there because I already had vacation plans to leave town tomorrow for the next few weeks, so I won't be able to attend. But I looking forward to hear some of the comments back, and glad to see our chamber attracts.
It's very good. It's going to be the first ever Best of Business Awards where both Mount Pearl and Paradise, the business community from both communities, are going to be sharing in this celebration together. So that's a very positive. Mayor Wiseman, is going to be attending. He'll be speaking, as will I. We also have, as you're probably aware, all of the Northeast Avalon joint towns are going to be holding their meeting, their regular meeting. They're going to hold tomorrow at 5 o'clock here in our chambers, and they're going to join us as guest of ours at the dinner tomorrow night, which is going to be nice. So Mayor Wiseman and I are going to host them tomorrow night on behalf of Mount Pearl and Paradise, and we're looking forward to it. And if they've got that kind of turnout, given how well they do these awards, it's just going to be a fabulous night.
I was going to mention the joint councils tomorrow night here in the chamber at 5 o'clock. So anybody who could make it tomorrow night, certainly hope that somebody from council will be here.
Come down and say hello.
Say hello to the joint council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Stoyles, and that's it for you. We are up to planning and land use. Councillor Raker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Planning and Land Use Development Committee, proposed site work. Item number 1 here is proposed site work for Irving Energy Distribution and Marketing. This is 63 Clyde Avenue, and also known typically as Donovan's Irving. Basically, the Irving is doing some renovation and some repairs to the propane tank farm there. And as such, this work basically involves installing a temporary flare stack, and in the long run, they'll be putting in a permanent flare stack. The flare stacks are designed to make the maintenance basically make it more safe. And this is considered basically a hazardous use of the property, and was subject to the discretion of council, and therefore had to be also processed basically through a public consultation process. What the city has done basically, they have published it on its own website as well as the Telegram, circulated notices to 34 property and business owners within 150 meters. Basically, to date, we have not received any commentary back, so we assume that's all good. As well, it's gone through all of the departments here, as well as many of the other regional organizations, such as St. John's Regional Fire. And what I'd like to do now, basically, is move this, that we approve their application to do these repairs. And you can see conditions 1 to 8 there are pretty standard. Condition 9 involves them developing and subsequently providing a communication protocol as it relates to when they do repairs to the site, and I guess they're using the flare stack, basically a protocol between us and between them and the city to do those repairs. And I so move.
It is moved. This is going to be seconded by Councillor Lane, by the way.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Contrary minded, motion carried.
Change committees, Councillor.
While you were out of town, you got switched.
Behind your back. The next item has to do with basically the Mount Pearl Municipal Plan. And when the plan was going through the approval process, Commissioner Saunders noted that for a piece of property on the rear of Glendale Avenue, this is on the rear of Glendale Gardens, there was she questioned whether or not we should use that space basically as I think it was what was it zoned as before? We want to make it. She suggested we make it rural, and right now it's conservation, and basically this would be more in keeping with the the neighboring residences as well as the current operation of Glendale Gardens. So the commissioner's report, this recommendation was forwarded to council, and basically the consideration, of course, the council put forward was that we would rezone this as rural, which would allow things on the private property owned by Glendale Gardens. It would allow you to have, for example, greenhouses there and stuff like that. But before we could amend the plan, basically we had to engage in a public hearing process. Mr. George Traynor conducted the hearing. Two main issues come up, I guess, during the hearing per the Commissioner's report. Those issues relate primarily to the use of fertilizers, in growing the flowers, as well as the erection of the cold frame, what they call cold frame greenhouses, which would typically be done only in the spring of the year. A public hearing was held, and as you can see, the recommendations are there from the Commissioner, and basically the Commissioner's recommending that we are approving of the rezoning of that land to rural. And I move the Commissioner's report.
Moved, seconded. Question or comment? Councillor Stoyles,
Your Worship,
a question?
Just wanted to, I guess, mention the concerns that this is where Mr. and Mrs. Tibbs concerned about, I guess, the sale of their property and stuff like that was the main concern, I think, with them. And of course the chemicals, and that was also a main concern but the chemicals and everything is being addressed in the report. But the sale of other properties around, I skimmed through the report because my iPad wasn't working the best. A couple of days I had it down here Thursday and Friday, and I got it back and it wouldn't come on. I only got it back on 3 o'clock this evening, so I didn't have time to read the whole report. And I just wanted to confirm that some of their concerns had been addressed, because they had called me a number of times concerning the sale of their property and with greenhouses and that going up, if they would get the sale value of their homes and things like that. I know we're only, I guess, accepting the report, and it has to come forward once they apply to put greenhouses up. Is that the case?
That's correct.
That's correct. So it's no decision here made today to put the greenhouses up, but I just wanted to make sure that their concerns were heard.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with a comment on any of that? Mr. Yevchek.
Your Worship, what you have is actually the Commissioner's report that is going to allow the policy to go forward in the redesignation to allow Council to consider the greenhouses. So if indeed there's issues with that, then I guess Council should be dealing with it today. But certainly what the Commissioner has said, he's listened to the representations by the people. In his opinion, the representations were of a nature that should not stop the plan amendment from going forward. As Councillor Stoyles has said, we will have an application, but in fact, by going forward with the amendment to the proposed municipal plan, that does give the property owners the opportunity to actually apply for those cold frames, greenhouse cold frames. So this is all taken as one full package. If it is recommended for approval as per the recommendation, and then the full municipal plan, the new development regulations will go forward to then municipal affairs for registration.
Okay, thank you, sir, very much. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, I'll call it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion is carried.
Okay, item number 3, Your Worship, has to do with 291 Old Placentia Road, which currently there's a building occupying the site there, and it is zoned, I believe, as institutional. No, actually zoned as community and public services. And that site basically is the Jehovah's Witness Church, is that right? Kingdom Hall, I think, right? Basically, they're moving to Paradise. So we have a proposal from a dentistry business who would like to relocate to that area. Of course, that does not fit in with our municipal plan. So basically, in order to get this rezoned, the municipal plan has to be updated and change the future land use map from institutional to general commercial, and as well to change the zoning for that particular block of land from community and public service to office building. As such, a public hearing was required before municipal affairs will approve, and this was done by Mr. Trainer. Again, he was the commissioner, and basically he found he was in agreement with what we were proposing to change the land use map. And in addition, I guess the main issue that came up in all this was privacy and noise and traffic, going from a church-type operation, I suppose, to a dental. And the key thing is, in addition to what we were proposing, is the commissioner is recommending, and I guess this has force hereafter, that an 8-foot fence basically be placed around the property, basically to bridge the noise and the privacy, so that the residents who live on Gates Place there, for example, will not have any will not be adversely impacted.
Does 8 feet surpass our current regulations?
I think it does, actually, and so I guess basically our regulations would take precedent. We would require a privacy fence to
Of
the
6
maximum
feet.
height of 6 feet. But the Commissioner's report does say 8 feet, but I'm assuming it meant to imply up to 8 feet, Director?
No, I think it's delayed land. I think they're gonna go with 8
We've
feet
allowed 8
because
feet
of
in
the
the
delayed,
past.
Have we?
delayed land. they
Let's
have
let
1/6.
Mr. Yevchik jump in.
Yeah, Your Worship, the regulation is 6 feet, but where there is a grade differential, there is discretion for council to allow more than that,
And we have
and
that
we
grade
have in the
differential
past.
there?
and we have in the past. Yes, Your
Okay, all right. And are we saying we're going to allow 8 feet there then?
Once we receive the application, it's very similar.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
now, we're just dealing with the plan amendment.
Right.
He's recommending, when you look at the application, that you should consider an 8-foot
Okay,
fence.
we don't actually have the application in our hands for that change. just
No,
yet.
Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, I don't believe anybody from the public had necessarily attended the the Commissioner's hearing except for one person. I know in the briefing session, several residents came, and that was their biggest concern. And
I
some
think
of the
most of the
houses there are actually well below this property. So an 8-foot fence would go a long way to making sure that people who are in the parking lot or in the dental office, we'll call it, if that goes through, are not peering down into their back gardens, right? And I'd like to move the Commissioner's report subject to the recommendation on the 8-foot fence, please.
Thank you. It is moved and it is seconded. All those in favor? Contrary? Oh, I'm sorry. More commentary? Go right ahead.
If I could, yeah. Councillor Aker is correct, but during the first phase of the public consultation that we had a lot of representation, and there was a lot of concern because at the time we were changing something that was actually developed for church use to a broader scope of development. I just want to commend the planning department, Mr. Yevchik in particular, because that night and the concerns of residents generally, I think later in the evening the concerns became sort of more refined and focused on things like height, but the original concern of residents were more about what potentially could be put here. You know, now that a church is not functioning there any longer, what are the varied uses that could be there? And I think part of the amendment and part of the changing of the zone, in fact, I know that this is the case, actually further restricted some of the uses that could be in that zone. It is, in every sense of the word, from a church perspective, it was a prime location. It was right in the middle, really, of a residential area. But that would be problematic for a lot of other uses. So I think one of the things that the planning department did was restrict the zone, redefine it, and apply a different zoning to that particular building and piece of land. And I think the residents were really, really pleased with that. So what started out to be, sort of huge objection, or a lot of concern at least, if not objection, ended up being very quiet and passive, and in the end, strong support. So that when we got to the commission hearing, in fact, we had nobody there. They
nobody
were
show up.
pleased with the direction that was undertaken. And
Very
I just
good.
want to extend, a word of thanks to the planning department for a tremendous job in sort of addressing that issue and making sure that the concerns of residents were looked after in the process.
Thank you, sir. On that note, we'll call it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
It should be noted, too, that, that's a bit of an increase, a nice increase in our tax base, too, for the city going forward. Ever the account.
Ever the accountant.
The next thing, Your Worship, I have is the development permit list from October 3rd to the 14th. Permits numbers 53 through 57, and I so move.
Move development permit list. All in favor? Contrary minded? Carried.
Now, let's adjust the size of the font for a second to get the number
Because
right.
you can't see it.
Boy, you said it, right?
Okay.
Now, I
let's-
see $926,556, and I believe that's residential building permits for the period. Oh, you gotta love technology.
First to the 18th.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Carried.
Nice to see the Morris County's doing some work on their property again.
Yes, thank goodness.
And part 4 there has building and construction subdivisions in the amount of $3,966,000. Nope, sorry, there's nothing for that period. And that's all we have.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Your Worship,
Uh,
I got to go to the next page.
yeah, you've lost a page, haven't you?
Oh, I've lost
because you need a total for sections 1, 2, and 3, which is $3,965,000, which you so moved.
And I so move. Thank you.
Moved, seconded, all those in favor, contrary-minded, motion is carried.
And it all comes down to eyesight.
And I do believe new glasses are in order for Councillor Aiken. Thank you. Mine, you see, work beautifully. That concludes all committee reports. We are going to start on new business, and I'm going to start with Councillor Stoyles today. I'm going to mix this up today because I'm coming to Paul last.
Okay,
Second
thank you.
last.
Your worship, a couple of things. I wanted to pass along my sympathy to the Noseworthy and Silver family. Mrs. Noseworthy passed away over the Thanksgiving, just before Thanksgiving weekend. She was buried actually the Monday of Thanksgiving. It was Tuesday really, but her service was on Monday. And she's long-term resident of Mount Pearl, and her grandson came to work with us back a while ago, Jason Silver, and wanted to pass along our sympathies and if you send a letter to the family, your worship. Also, your worship, the afternoon tea took place last week. The seniors' independence and the seniors have been growing a fair amount over the past number of years, and they're certainly almost outgrowing the Reed Centre, let alone Park Place.
They are the largest seniors group in the province.
It's great to see so many
Huge.
of them involved and taking the time to come out. And we still have a number of seniors in their homes who still are looking for something to do. But if you're a senior in this man's town, there's no reason for you to be home bored, because there's lots of programs and lots of things to do. And Georgina would be only glad to speak with anybody and help them get out and inform them about the activities we have.
Amen to that.
The other item I have, your worship, I would like for you to send a letter of congratulations to Mr. Fred Best. I attended the alumni award ceremony last night at Sheridan. Mr. Best was honoured with the Outstanding Community Service Award. Of course, he had put 28 years in as an educator and 30 years as the mayor of Clarenville. He's an outstanding citizen and has done a lot for municipal politics, along with M&L and as chair of the Municipal Assessment Agency. And it was an honour to be there last night to hear all Fred has accomplished in his lifetime. And your worship, again, I would like you to send a letter to him.
A letter of congratulations, absolutely.
Thank you, your
Honored
worship.
to do so.
And
Councillor,
of course, I wanted to pass along my support and congratulations to Councillor Lane and of course to, yes, support, of course he has big shoes to fill, and I'm sure he's going to do us a great job.
ladies and gentlemen, the world is ending.
Well, I was referring to Julie Bentley and other people who've gone before.
Now things get back to normal.
But I also want to pass along congratulations to Steve and, of course, to Paul Davis and the candidates in this district, and looking forward to working with them all again. Of
This
course,
wide swath of Tories.
well, what do you say? I mean, everything happens for a certain period of time, and then it ends. So enjoy it while you can.
Enjoy it while you can. A red heart in a deep sea of blue, you heard calling out there. Councillor Walsh, new business.
Can't help it, can she?
Can't help it.
Really can't help it. You're not going to change your colours, are you?
No.
It's too late now. That's right. Well, no, you're not too old for it. Not at all. You can change anytime you want. I'm sure the Tories would welcome you, but the Liberals would hate to see you go, so there it goes. Your worship,
Go orange.
you could, yeah, that's really would be a change of color.
If I win,
I want to, while he's here, also extend congratulations to Steve and to Paul Davis. And I never did take the opportunity, your worship, to speak to Minister Denine's departure, because I know that during the interim period between now and the time that the new members of the House of Assembly are sworn in and the cabinet is reconvened and a new cabinet is put in place, that I think he's still active in his role. But I certainly want to extend a word of congratulations to Dave. We go back a long, long ways. In fact, we threw rocks at each other in the West End at one point in time, and I probably hit him a few times. I think maybe that's what may have happened, actually. But Dave has done a great job and has served us well as a councillor and in various roles, and he will be missed, and I know he's really looking forward, in fact, to a new phase of his life. To Steve, of course, congratulations not only on your re-election, but as the mayor has already said, on the birth of a new child. It was a busy time, but it makes life all that much more interesting and, in fact, so much more worthwhile in many ways. I can't help but just at least acknowledge that one of two potential candidates is actually in the gallery. And Andrew, I know that you're here for a particular reason. We're probably going to get to that very soon. But welcome, and the best of luck to you and to others who come out. Anytime someone puts their name forward for public office, you know, you're really putting yourself on the line. And I admire so much because we're there ourselves. We know what goes on, and we know how much work and effort goes into it. So I want to extend the very best of luck to you and any others really who come out and offer themselves for a position in the future. The only other thing I want to mention, in the last week or two since our last meeting, most of all the households, in fact all of the households, I'm sure, in Mount Pearl have received the clear plastic bags that the Councillor Tessier referenced in the last meeting. We have a bit of a unique arrangement with a contractor who's going to take care of that stuff for us. Keeps it out of the landfill. As you know, these bags, particularly, or the leaves rather, particularly when they're wet and damp, they can be very, very heavy. And just keeping them out of the landfill and avoiding tipping fees and that sort of thing, apart from the tremendous value in environmental stewardship in it of itself, is worthwhile. So I encourage residents to not just receive them, but to use them. And to continue to do whatever they can to increase our usage of the recycling efforts and the kind of efforts and initiatives we have in place for residents, and to divert as much as we can from the landfill. So just a reminder on that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I too would like to say congratulations to MHA's Kent and Davis on getting re-elected. Look forward to working with you, Steve and Paul, in the future, and also congratulations to our colleague, Councillor Lane. We are going to save him for last, and I'll just wish Paul congratulations, and I'm sure you'll do a great job for the City of Mount Pearl. We look forward to working with you, and also to recognize Andrew, and I'm sure there will be others to put their name in for the race, and that'll be decided, I guess, by the end of the evening. So congratulations to all. One little issue I have brought up, coming west on Topsa Road here by Mount Pearl Square, there's been a lane closed for about the last 2 weeks, and I'm just wondering, I don't see anybody working there. The lane is closed. It has something to do with the storm drainage there, but traffic every night is backed up, and I admit I'm part of the people who are always backed up there. I'm just curious, who now is basically going to be taking over?
The man taking the notes right there in the corner, right next to you.
Jason, or Director Silver, I should say. Would you mind following up? I had a resident or two complain.
Update us on it.
What's going on there? It'd be nice to see that lane reopen. That's a very busy intersection, and I think the congestion is mostly there around supper time. Right in front of Mount Pearl Square, across from Dodge City, as you're going in a westerly direction, and traffic is backed up there every night, and has been so for about 2 weeks. So if we could follow that up, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tessier.
Just a couple of brief items. Congratulations, of course, to our colleague Paul, and I'm told we're going to get to that, but you can't miss an opportunity to offer your own personal congratulations on the election. It was a very exciting night. And, of course, to MHA Steve Kent and MHA Paul Davis. I remember being up in Steve's headquarters on election night and watching his lovely wife in active labor. It was nerve-wracking. It was a lot more nerve-wracking than watching the results come in, I'll tell you that. So congratulations on the birth of your son as well. Our city staff took part in the Max Corporate Challenge on Saturday, October 15th. Now, this was in support of the Pearl program, which allows children to participate in sporting activity in Mount Pearl who may have financial challenges in doing so. Krista Tucker, Nancy Howell, Allison Critch, John Ackerman, Brian Shamarny, Sean McKenna, and Jason Silver and Colleen Butler participated, Monica Storch and Catherine Howell as well. Anyway, I'm told they played volleyball. They took part in an obstacle course. It would have been fun to be a part of it. I gave them a hard time because they never invited me to participate. But anyway, in any event, I want that noted in the minutes that I was not invited to participate in it.
You
Me
being a future inductee in the Hall of
Mount
Fame,
Pearl
for
Sports Hall
God's
of
sake.
Fame. For
How could
God's
they leave you
sakes.
out?
For God's sakes. Anyway, they actually raised $2,500
That's
towards
marvelous.
this program. So I want to commend our city staff for taking part in such a very worthwhile endeavor, and I think that they had a bit of fun along the way as well. Our last public meeting, and while he's not here, we have had a director move on to greener pastures, as you would say, Your Worship. Scott Lush, who is our former now Director of Public Works and Infrastructure, has taken a position in the private sector, and we didn't get an opportunity to acknowledge his contribution to the city in a public fashion at a public council meeting, and I just completed a 2-year term as Chair of Public Works, so wanted to take an opportunity to acknowledge really the tremendous contribution that he's made to our city. He sat in that chair and used his own style, his own flair with the Public Works and Infrastructure Department, and he will be missed. There's absolutely no doubt about that, but I wanted to wish him well in his future endeavors and at least acknowledge his service to the city of Mount Pearl and the citizens.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lush moved along, and by the way, just for council and everybody's benefit, it should be noted that Mr. Silver is going to step into that role for us in an advisory way while we go out now and hunt for a new director of infrastructure and public works. We do have very competent managers on the scene up there, both from an engineering perspective in Tina, and certainly with Eric Arsenal handling public works. We're quite comfortable that the city will not find itself in relation to the dealing of its day-to-day activities having any challenges that cannot be met. From the point of view of policy and senior management, from the point of view of purchasing and things that are needed that go outside the scope, I'll call it, of those management positions, Mr. Silver is going to be the touchstone and the avenue for that. 2 ways through to council and senior management, as well as back to both our unionized and non-unionized staff at the depot. We realize that that's going to be an added burden, particularly if we're heading into budget time, and that's, it's a good thing you have no hair to pull out, Jason. But we appreciate your stepping in to do that for us while we go to work on finding a new director. So having said that, we're losing other people as well, and as we move on with new business here, I'm going to turn things over to Councillor Paul Lane. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had thought about at one point in time, I guess, writing a speech, but I decided, I got sort of part way through it, and I decided to tear it up and throw it in the garbage, to be quite honest with you, because I would rather make commentary, I guess, off the cuff and from the heart, because it's the city of Mount Pearl has certainly been a very important part of my life, and I don't want to trivialize it by just reading off a piece of paper. I've certainly been very fortunate, I think it's safe to say, in my lifetime thus far, to have had the opportunity to serve with some great people in what I truly believe to be the greatest city, not just in this province, but certainly the country and the world for that matter. And that's certainly starting with this group that we have here in this room. And I can say that over the last 8 years, I've thoroughly enjoyed my time on council and made some great friendships along the way. I think I've said it before, when you factor in your actual working life with your day job, and then the time that you have to actually rest and sleep and everything else, you factor in the other hours that are actually left over. We probably spend more time with each other than we do probably with anybody else. In some cases, more than we do with our families, even from time to time. It is scary. It's scary, but it's true. It's scary, but it's true. But over that time, you certainly get to know a lot of people. You know what they're all about, and you get to, besides do a lot of work, and besides sometimes not always agree on everything, but you get the bond as well. And so, for me, this is a bitter, sweet experience. I'm going to be, I guess, living a dream of mine now to be able to sit in the House of Assembly. But by the same token, this has been an experience of a lifetime for me. I've had the opportunity over the last 8 years, as you know, to serve on every committee of council, to serve on regional fire, as Mount Pearl's rep on the Northeast Avalon Joint Councils, and I've served with every member of council on various committees. I've worked with some great people on council, probably one of the greatest mayors that the city has ever known, and I'm so glad to be able to, that he's here to join me today, Steve. Just kidding. I couldn't resist.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that had to
You
come.
knew that was coming, right?
I knew that was coming.
I just couldn't resist. I just couldn't resist. No, Your Worship, you've certainly done a great job in carrying this city forward, and I know that you will continue to do so through this term of office and forever much longer that you should decide. But we have had some great leaders here in the city, including my colleague Steve, including my very good friend Ed Grant, a person who I had the utmost respect for on council, and including the rest of my colleagues here in this room. I also want to make mention of the staff for the City of Mount Pearl, and we've been so blessed here, and we are so blessed to have such competent people at the helm. And of course we had Gerard Lewis, who did a wonderful job as CAO, and now of course Michelle Peach, who's come up through the ranks, and we're very proud of the great job she's doing. Stefan, what can I say? Stefan is like that. He's like that sort of friendly, lovey, touchy-feely brother-in-law type of thing.
He's Yoda.
Yeah, Yoda. There you go. But he's a great person, a great human being.
The force be
Bit
with
of a
you.
procrastinator sometimes, but we'll talk about it tomorrow. But certainly, that's right. But certainly, Stefan, has been a pleasure working with you as well. I've always valued your voice, your input. You certainly have a passion for the work you do, and I'm very confident when I say that you're, I'm sure, one of the best planners that this province has ever known, for sure. We have our two newbies over here, Jason and Brian, and haven't gotten to know you, I guess, as long as I have as some others, but certainly I wish to both of you well. You're both very competent in your field, and I know you're going to do great things for the City of Mount Pearl, and I'm sure I'll get an opportunity to interact with you in my new role as well. Scott, who is missing from us, obviously. Scott, I have to say, was I'm very disappointed that we've lost Scott, actually. He was a great director. I know that I probably had him drove off his head, and I even said to him, I said, you know, I hope I'm not the reason why you're leaving, because I'd be calling him almost on a daily basis on this issue and that issue and something. Yeah, something else, right?
Well, by the way, I'd like to announce that Mr. Lush is coming back. Now that there's a change, I couldn't help it.
I hear you. I hear you. Fair game. And certainly Jim Oxford before him. Jim, as we know, was also a fabulous resource. So we've certainly had great senior management here in the city. We've had great middle management and all the workers, all the support staff here at City Hall, all of the guys and gals who get out every day and pick up that garbage, clear our roads, beautify the city, all the great work they do. We've really been very blessed as a city to have those people and doing such a great job for us. I think we would all agree with that. Anyway, with all that being said, I guess the time has come where I have to officially resign as a councillor with the City of Mount Pearl. As I said, I've had 8 great years, 6 as councillor, approximately 2 as deputy mayor, and I even got to bang that gavel a couple of times in your absence, Your Worship, when I was deputy mayor, and that was certainly a thrill for me. I have to be honest with you, one of the things that was on my bucket list, I never did get to wear that chain. That was something that I always dreamed of doing as well. But
We'll let you do it tonight.
but there you go. But there we go, right? But politics, of course, is all about timing, as we all know. And when Dave Denine decided that he was going to step down, I knew that if my opportunity was going to come, it was at that point that I had to make the move, and I did, and I guess it worked out in my favor, and I owe that certainly to the support of my family, all of my supporters and friends, and certainly to the citizens of Mount Pearl. I would say to all of you that as an MHA, for the District of Mount Pearl South, I can assure you that I will be a great friend to this council. I totally support a lot of the things that you guys have done over the years. Been so proud to have been part of it, actually. And there's been a number of great things that certainly I've seen come to fruition over the last number of years, whether it be through things like our focus, our increased focus on the environment, the great project that we have up here with the new glacier in terms of being a green project, in some of the other green initiatives we've initiated throughout the city and we continue to do, in terms of going to paperless meetings, in terms of being the first council to actually televise its meetings on the internet, in terms of some of the great strides we've made in terms of snow clearing and so on, and the great reputation we have for that. There's just been so many things. We've gone through a recreational master plan process, which has brought to fruition, like I said, our new glacier. We're going to be building a new pool. We have a world-class soccer facility, and I think it's fair to say that we're the envy of the province when it comes to sport and recreation. I look at the programs we have, such as was mentioned earlier, our seniors' independence, and the great reputation that has, and the great work that's happening, and the membership that's growing. And again, it's a model for the whole province. The bottom line is Mount Pearl has tended, in my view, while we come up against a few little roadblocks here and there, we tend to get it right, and we should all be proud of that. And I am so proud of all the great things that we've done in the city, and all the great things that I know that we will continue to do. I would say to you all, though, that we have to, as we've talked about when we've had our meetings, our discussions, so on, we have to always make sure, as I have and we all have, that we continue to put Mount Pearl first, that we make sure that we continue to be this vibrant city, to be this cutting edge, to always be on the cutting edge, to always be out ahead of everybody else in terms of having the best programs, having the best services, introducing new technology, continuing to keep that pride in this city that makes us so proud. And for God's sakes, to keep us out of St. John's. And I wouldn't be able to sit down if I didn't make mention of the CBC article that I saw today on cbc.ca/NL, where Mr. Smart basically said that looks like amalgamation isn't going to work, and this is the city manager of St. John's, and a big smile came to my face when I actually read that. And obviously we know that the government's policy is that there will be no forced amalgamation, and I saw your interview as well, Your Worship, and keeping up the good fight, and we don't need to be part of St. John's. We're a fabulous city on our own. We're doing it right. We're going to continue to do it right, and we have to make sure that we keep that status. I can tell you that as your MHA, that I am committed to doing whatever is necessary to ensure that Mount Pearl remains a strong, vibrant, independent city. I'm committed to ensuring that we get our fair share of provincial and where possible, federal funds for our infrastructure, for our facilities, and so on. I'm committed to the new project that we've looked at in council in terms of trying to develop some more affordable seniors housing. That is a real issue, as we know, in our city. I think it's very admirable what this city is doing to try to bring some new housing to fruition. I want to be part of doing whatever I can to help and assist in making that happen, and I'm certainly committed to that. I guess in closing, I'll just reiterate the fact that this has been a tremendous opportunity to work here in the city of Mount Pearl, to work with such great people, and I look forward to working with you in the future as your MHA for Mount Pearl South. I got a great guy here on the team, and Steve Kent, Paul Davis. I know Steve is equally committed to making sure that this city remains the great city that it always has been and always will be. That's it, Your Worship, other than to say I guess I am now officially resigned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Let me say on behalf of Council for a second, Paul, before I call on the Deputy Mayor, because we obviously have to go about replacing you in this chair. That will not be easy to do. There are several things I've thought about the last 8 years with you, actually, and there have been a lot of things that have gone through my mind. I have to tell you that most of them have made me smile. There are a couple of things that you brought to the council chamber that nobody expected, and some you won't hear, and some you won't hear about. But there is a reality that when you come into this job, and for those that are seeking to get here, and if they can hear my voice, and if they're listening, and if they're tuning in, I think they need to know this, that it really doesn't matter what your CV reads like when you come into this chamber. What matters is that you bring enthusiasm and that you bring passion, that you have a love for community and a willingness to roll up your sleeves and work at it. Paul brought that in spades to this council chamber. He said this was a great thing in his 8 years. He was always happy here. And I got to tell you something. It made a lot of us happy a lot of times too. He always had the slightly off-color joke every now and again. He always had something humorous to say. Always had an ability in meetings, and I think you're going to find that, Steve, in caucus, that he always has the ability to reduce tension with a little humor, sometimes at his own price. But he brought passion to the chamber, and he brought commitment to the chamber. That will not be missed because he's still going to be here. I'm thrilled to know that the 3 MHAs that we have representing this city, both of them have sat in, 2 of them have sat in this chamber certainly, and they all have a passion for Mount Pearl. I think it's why the city continues to be, as Paul eloquently put it, so leading edge, so cutting edge, such a great place to bring a family, to rear them up, a great place to do business, a great place to live. The fact that your colleague in the House is here today to see this, Paul, is a testament to the relationship building style that he himself has with Steve, and I have no doubt that Mount Pearl at the provincial level up there at Confederation Building remains in good hands. But we do want to take this moment to let you know that we're very proud of you. This is a big moment in your life. It's a big moment to the city, and your commitment to us is undoubted. We're very proud of it. If there's one little regret we have, it's what we have to do next. And that's that we have to go out and find someone else to fill that seat. I hope whoever it is brings with them the same passion, the same enthusiasm, and same commitment. And if there's somebody out there that the people of Mount Pearl can see and can say, yeah, that's the guy, that's the gal, and they send us someone, well, kind of just like you, this council will feel pretty good about it. Thank you, sir, for your service to your community up to now. We look forward to the years ahead. Thank you very much. And with that, does anybody from council, before I call on the deputy mayor, want to add anything at all?
If I could, Your Worship, yeah, I just
Councillor Walsh.
I didn't do that and to go around intentionally because I wasn't sure where we were going to be in terms of order. But I just want to echo the things that you said. Paul works with health and safety, as you know, with Harvey's. That side of the room, Jim and Paul in particular, are going to be a lot safer because this kind of stuff. He takes a pretty wide berth, but you used a couple of words that immediately resonated with me when you described Paul. You mentioned that he's passionate and he's committed. Obviously, there can be no stronger advocate for the city of Mount Pearl than Paul Lane, sometimes to the point of being dangerous, but just an incredibly strong advocate for Mount Pearl. In many ways, yes, he's going to be able to continue to do what he does in advocating for Mount Pearl at the provincial level. I kind of get a feeling that Paul he's probably going to be the recipient of a lot of municipal calls for a long, long time,
Yeah.
as well as some provincial calls. In some ways you feel like saying, I guess, council's loss is certainly the province's gain. But his voice will be heard. It'll be heard loud and clear, and it will always be in favor of what he believes truly to be in the best interests of the city of Mount Pearl. So good luck to you and your family, Paul. All the best in the future.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to call on the deputy mayor. Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I was thinking as Councillor Lane was speaking, he certainly made up for all the missed airtime during the election campaign, didn't he? We certainly missed them under business arising or under new business.
That's
didn't we?
right. That's
So
right.
I was looking at the clock. I think he got his full 19 minutes in. So, of course, Paul, I'm just kidding. I, too, want to extend congratulations, first of all, to Steve Kent and Paul Davis on the re-election, and, of course, to Paul, our newest MHA. Randy summed it up beautifully and described you perfectly as a passionate, committed, fighter for Mount Pearl. You heard of the Fighting Newfoundlander. You're the Fighting Mount Pearler. I got to say, one thing that I first learned about Paul is when he's making a point, it doesn't matter who speaks to him, what noise is happening, he never loses his train of thought, and he keeps going until he gets his message across. So rest assured that his voice will be heard up on the hill up there. And again, as he said, we spent a lot of time together on council here. Very valid points. We forged some great friendships, and I do consider Paul to be a dear friend. I do have every confidence in him that when he goes to the House, that again the concerns, the issues for Mount Pearl certainly will be well heard. And I've seen him work in action. I know that when a resident brings a concern to Paul, he will carry it through until that issue gets resolved. The resident may not always agree with it, but Paul certainly will follow it through, do the research, and he's known to get back to the residents and let them know what the outcome was. So again, Paul, congratulations. And I know you will represent the city very well in the next 4 years. Your Worship, I have to now bring in a motion. I move that in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Elections Act, a by-election be held on Tuesday, November the 22nd, 2011, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. to fill the current vacancy on the City of Mount Pearl Council. Nominations of candidates will be received between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. on October 28th and October 31st, 2011, in the Lady Anne Room at the City of Mount Pearl City Hall, and I so move.
Moved. It is seconded by, who's supposed to second this motion? I don't know. Anybody?
Corporate Services.
Corporate Services?
Yep.
So who's Corporate Services here?
David
Councillor Aker.
Yep.
All right, it is moved by Deputy Mayor Locke, seconded by Councillor Aker. Any other comments or questions before we call the vote?
I guess there will be an advance poll. That's not indicated on
The advance poll is not indicated on there, but there will be one. Yes.
There will be an advance poll.
There will be an advance poll. Councillor Walsh?
I believe that the candidates will be free to actually go out and campaign and let the message be known. In fact, some have already done that,
I would think
indicated
so,
their
yes.
interest. But I do want to mention, and I had a chat before the meeting with our director, our sign regulations restrict signs from being visible up until 30 days prior to the election. There is a process, of course, where candidates need to come in. We're all bound by the same regulations. They get a permit. They get the signs. I had a couple of inquiries about that from two candidates who have made it known that they're interested.
Well, I think sign day would be around when?
Sunday, I think. Sunday or 12:01 midnight Sunday morning will be the first time that you'll be able to put signs up. And I think that's plenty long. That's more than 4 weeks.
That's plenty.
That's plenty long. Yes, that's right. On public property. Right.
Signs on private property can go when you like. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other question or comment on that? We obviously are we ourselves as a community, are we going to encourage some people to run? Are we going to do some ads or anything of that nature? Are we doing anything with this, or is this it?
I think this is not a very well kept secret.
I got a feeling it's well out there. Mr. Yevchuk, if you would.
Your Worship, just want to clarify, the 30 days applies to both public and private property.
Oh, does it?
Yes, Your Worship.
Oh, it's both.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, didn't know that. All right, I thought on private property you were free to do what you will. All right.
Not election signs. I think that was always
Maybe on election time, maybe that's the case. All right, well, 30 days is enough for anybody, I'm sure. With that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded?
And Your Worship, I have one other item.
Hold on. Motion is carried. The election will be November 22nd.
Yeah.
One other item.
One final item, Your Worship, and it has to do with the level of street work that's been ongoing here, and the frustrations that a dozen or so residents have expressed about the paving in particular at Old Placentia Road and Smallwood Drive by the Reed Centre. And I would like to see, and I'd like to have a look at our policy, I don't think we should be doing any paving during rush hour traffic, because
None of us do.
no, I mean, it makes no sense to me. So when people are getting off work or going to work, the pavers were out from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, and the traffic was just backed up. And the same thing happened during supper time. So I would like to see us have a look at our policy, and on any sort of main thoroughfares, Smallwood Drive, Commonwealth Avenue, Old Placentia Road, that if, when the paving is required, that we certainly take the machinery out of the way during rush hour traffic. I know it happens in other jurisdictions, and I'd like to see that happen here because, again, the number of complaints and frustrations that I got for that particular piece of road work, that outnumbered any others that I've received. So I'd like to put that back to Infrastructure Public Works and see if we can't make that a policy, that during rush hour traffic, that we don't have any paving equipment or any road equipment on the streets, so you can let people get through. Do it after and do it before. So that's the last thing. Sure.
Councillor
As
Walsh.
Chair of Public Works, I certainly understand what you're saying, and I know you didn't put this in the form of a motion, but I'd like to ask you if you just referred back to the committee, maybe look at some options, because it may not be as easy as saying and doing that.
I'm sure it's not, actually.
We're in very, very restricted time schedules already. It may be possible to do it, but sometimes when you restrict the work of companies, you also pay a fairly hefty price, and we've been already guarded against that with some construction that we wanted to have changed, amended, revised, or working around certain schedules already. So if you would be good enough to just maybe suggest that we could just have it referred to the committee, we'll look at some of those options and what the consequences. Nobody wants it, I can assure you. The Gander, Grand Falls, Corner Brook, City of St. John's, nobody wants it, but sometimes there's a reason why you do it, and maybe just leave it with us and we can look at
that was my intent, not to bring a motion forward. Yeah. Just I do know that it's happening in other jurisdictions, on the mainland, for example. Speaking to my father, who worked with the city in the 60s and the 70s, back then they weren't permitted. In his line of work, they were not allowed on the road during rush hour traffic. That was brought in 40 years ago. So I'd like to have it looked at and see if we can't bring in a similar policy.
Yeah, I'd like to see what the committee comes back with. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Everybody, I don't know if there's much else to say under new business. I just want to add, as most of you are aware, and you have been for some time, that the City of St. John's, as part of its longer strategic plan, had identified, I believe it was, 3 core issues that they felt were priority issues for their city. One of those core issues was to continue to promote and advocate the amalgamation of communities on the Northeast Avalon, namely the urbanized areas of Paradise, all of the city of Mount Pearl. The City of St. John's came in possession of their final report from Semtech Consultants in July. They've sat on this report from then until now, the middle of October. For reasons unbeknownst to me, they have decided over the last several days that they are going to release the report at long last, even though we understand, and I had an opportunity to read the executive summary today, that the report is not overwhelmingly jumping up and down to say that amalgamations of the type that's envisioned by the City of St. John's are really appropriate or necessary. The memo that was issued by the city manager in St. John's to council was leaked to the media. As you can appreciate, this is not a good thing. To have a confidential document written by senior staff, presented to members of council, to have it widely distributed when it's supposed to be in confidence, is inappropriate. Now, I appreciate the fact that we got the opportunity to see it. Don't get me wrong, right? And I like what it says. Don't get me wrong. But the fact that it happens is dangerous to the operation of any organization, and it's not appreciated by anybody that kind of stuff happens. So I just want to say once again that I hope within our community, our initiatives, which have to be kept in confidence sometimes because of commercial reality or political propriety, we do so circumspectly, and that things do not get floated out into the atmosphere with no one having any control over what's going on, which is what happened in this instance to the City of St. John's. So I think we should recognize as well that while the report is recommending, I think in the end, that they put this to bed, they have not. We're going to be talking about this, I think, for several more days to come. And I'm looking forward to the debate finally ending. I'd like to think that before we get a new member of council on here, people will say amalgamation. What is that? And we won't be dealing with it any longer. Just a comment on it of a couple observations about this whole process that I think need to be said. And with that, if no one has any other comment, I'm going to call for an adjournment. Moved by Councillor Walsh. We stand adjourned.
Well done, Father Lane. Good job.
Mr. Lane,